Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is One Day Today on episode 134. Thank you all for joining us. I'm really excited to introduce you to our guest today. Before we do that, I just want to check in and say, who am I? What am I here to do? Who am I, and why bother get up in the morning? Like, what is this world that we're born into? What is my role in all of this? And I think that's a question that I'll speak for myself that I've had, in much of my life in the last several years. But I feel like at some point in all of our lives, we kind of have this opportunity to really look at those questions and ask ourselves, what are we doing here? What is my purpose on this planet? How can I how can I use my gifts to lift others up? And I would assert, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe, what you look like, what color you are, you have something unique. You have something beautiful. You have the choice every day to plant seeds of love, of laughter, wonder, and beauty for your neighbor, for yourself, for your family, for your community, for your state, for your country, for your world. And we all have that ability. And what's possible when we each choose to stand there for ourselves and for our community, for our world. And that's what this stage is about, is leaders in their communities and in our world who are up to things greater than themselves. And it's today is no exception. I'm just gonna bring him right in, but I'm excited to introduce you and to welcome to the stage Richard Morin. Hey,
Well,
Richard.
well, first of all, thank you very much. And I really appreciate being here. I think anytime you have an opportunity to speak with others and perhaps influence others in some way, I guess I'd start out with the old saying. It's an old cliche, but when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now, if you've never heard that one, it's a good one because you think about the lessons that you get in life and when do they come? And when they come, how many times do they come before you bite into them? So I like what Abram started out with when he was talking about the purpose. Why are we here? What gets you up in the morning? What is it that gets you charged up and going? And that's really the gist of my conversation. And it's simply called goal setting. It's called goal setting because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And goal, examining, writing, adding to, changing your goals every day is like nutrition. Every day you should eat something good, right? Every day you should take care of your body by ingesting good things, and you should put good things in your mind. And so with that, I've got some slides I want to share. So first of all, here it is. It's the morning somewhere, but every day is a new day. And I know that's pretty evident, but there's 86,400 seconds a day. 86,400. And each one of them is a now, 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 now. So when is the best time to do something? Well, how about now? When's the best time to exercise or eat or get that job or write the resume or go see somebody or take a walk? It's always now. But people put things off and at their own peril because it's always now, it's always the time. So I got some graphics here. So I love this one because life is ahead of you. Now, some people want to keep looking in the rear view mirror. Why? When you're driving your car, if you're looking in the rear view mirror too much, you're going to crash. What good is it when you're driving to look back in the rear view mirror or at the back window? Everything's in front of you. Well, so is your life. And if you look at that image I have, for every mile of road, there are 2 miles of ditch. Well, what are the ditches in life? Well, they could include alcohol, drugs, laziness, procrastination, sloth, all kinds of things that people do that they don't want to do, but they do it anyways, right? So I said these words earlier, but if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So, and back to Abram's comments about why are we here? Well, you have to set a destination. What is it? But every day you're advancing in your journey. So every day you should know where the stops are. If we're talking about the road, of course, right? Where you're going to have lunch, how you're going to dress when you get there, who you're going to bring with you on your journey. I mean, every day, like today, I'm on a journey with Abram. Who would have thought this was possible? And whoever is out there listening, hey, you're along for the ride. So my job, my role, my goal here today is to give you something, is to leave you with a thought. So while you're here with us, you look at this slide, it's about distractions. Some of you, even though we have a short time together, will want to look at your device. You'll want to look out the window. You're going to want to pet the dog. You're going to want to do all kinds of stuff. We ask you, just be with us now. Be with us here. But in your life, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is grab your device and check out the news and check out the feed and check out Facebook and LinkedIn. Why? What good has that done you thus far? Why not pick up your handy goal sheet, and anybody that wants goal sheets, just email me. I will send them to you free. I mean, if I can help you, I will. But just richard@richardmorin.net. richard@richardmorin.net. I'll send you them. And because then you're looking at your goals every day and you remind yourself that, holy cow, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. You know what I mean? It's going to keep you in the moment. It's going to keep you working on your life, on contributing. You have to remember that everything you do or don't do, everything you do in your life will take you closer or further from your goals. Hey, if your goal is to be an athlete, well, staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning for, partying with your friends doesn't take you closer, does it? No. If you want to be an athlete, it's called good diet, good nutrition, good training, good thoughts, right? Thinking good thoughts. And if we think about that for a moment, I conclude all of my emails with think good thoughts. If you're with me in this, man, there's lots of thoughts that go through your mind that aren't necessarily good, right? Well, it takes effort, but if you invest in the time of your day, every day, that 86,400 seconds, thinking good thoughts, working towards your goals and applying yourself with a focus, with a laser intensity, you'll get there. You will get there. So I love this slide because life is about getting the things that you want. I just want you to picture a large grocery store, the biggest store in the world. And there you are at the starting line, if you will, and call that birth. And in my illustration, you're going to go through this grocery store of life, one aisle at a time, one day at a time, if you will, one step at a time. And the checkout means checkout. That means you're done. You're checked out. You're no longer here. You are devoid of life. So anyways, what happens in between is what we're talking about. So a goal is like a shopping list. If you go to your local store without a list, you're going to come out with stuff, most of which you don't really need, most of which could go bad. But having a list, you go in, you're focused, you get it done. So in this illustration, some people go through life and they go through the checkout counter and they have a few things thrown in their basket haphazardly. And that's it. Boom, they're checked out. Some people go through the checkout and they have 3 carts. They're pushing one. They're pulling their belt off and tied to a third one and have the belt in their teeth. And they're going through the checkout with 3 full carts. And when they get through, they look back at the store and they go, you know what? I got everything I wanted. I've had a full life. I've got what I wanted. And boy, do I feel good. And now, adios, muchachos, they're out of there. So hopefully this illustration resonates with you. Think of your life and think of your daily contributions and your daily effort as that of being in your grocery store of life. It's pretty powerful, actually. So this slide makes no sense, right? Well, if you look at life without goals, without direction, without hope, without an idea, a plan, if you will, that's what it looks like. Because, you have all this social media and all this noise and all this stuff going on, and everybody's telling you things in the radio and everything's bombarding you, and you don't get anything done. At the end of the day, you are exhausted, you are tired, The next day, you're not motivated because it's just more noise, more stuff. And next thing you know, 10 years has got behind you. Nobody told you where to run. You didn't hear the starting gun. That's a line from Pink Floyd, by the way. Anyways, think about that. Add some coherence to your life. Set some goals. Get yourself in a position where you're going to get those things you want, like the shopping cart, and not end up kerfuffled and frustrated and at the checkout counter, and you're sadly lacking those things you might have, could have, should have had. And goals, here we have an age-old compass. Now, most of you have a GPS, so you might not even know how to use a compass. But anyways, it's a very good image because goals, again, is a compass. And it keeps you going in the direction that you want to go. You don't find yourself getting lost and going in circles and coming to the same point again and again, running out of food and water because you're in the forest, as that illustration shows, and a grizzly bear comes up and you're his lunch, and that's it. You're at the checkout. Anyways, a little bit of drama there. It's interesting, That's a great illustration. Now, there are two things you get in life for free. You get your life and you get time. Those are the only two things you get, and they're free. What you do with them is up to you. I mean, I wrote a book called You Working With You because that's what your life's about. If you can't work with yourself, how can you work with anybody else? How can you get things done? And the bookmark that goes with the book has my trusty clock in the back. So the time is always now. We'll get to that in a minute. But think about how in your life, you do get two things. We don't know how long we're going to be here, do we? Some of us are here a short period of time. That's a shame. Some of us are here a long time. But just because you're here a long time doesn't mean you accomplish much of what you might have or could have or should have, does it? So be mindful of your time and think well on goal setting and those sorts of things that matter. Because every day, now I don't have a picture of somebody sculpting themselves because that's impossible. How could someone sculpt themselves? But what are you sculpting? I want to give you some peace here. The mirror, well, when you look in the mirror shows an image. But that image is really 5% of the real you. The other 95% that the mirror does not show is your knowledge, your work ethic, your abilities, your personality, your drive. It doesn't show your goals. It doesn't show your capabilities. It doesn't show all those things that are you that I personally would like to know if I met you. We pay a lot of attention to the image in the mirror, hair and makeup and piercings and tattoos and all kinds of stuff. But what really matters is what's behind that face, under that skin, the real you, the person that can smile and that can share. So back to the goal setting, if you want to accomplish a lot of your goals, you're going to have to sculpt yourself differently. Now, some of the great actors of the world can play multiple roles. Now, you'll always recognize Brad Pitt as Brad Pitt, but he will play multiple roles in multiple types of movies and skits and so on. And he'll always do his best to try to portray the character. But he's never the same. Although you recognize Brad Pitt for who he is, he does his best through makeup and voice, intonation, and so on to be in the moment. Because that's what's critical. If you are unidimensional, one-dimensional, it might be hard for you to achieve the goals that you want. If you're acting now in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, the way you acted when you were 10, well, that might not work so well. I'm just saying. So it's important to make yourself, build yourself, work on yourself, develop discipline, commensurate with your image, with your vision, with your goals, so that you can accomplish them, so that you can get to where you want to go. So, we have, 15 or 16 minutes, and we're pretty much getting to the end of that time. So this is an image that I love because look at the clock, pay attention. There's no numbers. Wow, the time is now. I said earlier, what time is it to do anything? The time is always now. And we fall into discussion, me and Abram, we're going to talk about that at length. We're going to be able to delineate, if you will, to go into the time, because the number one obstacle between you and the achievement of your goals is you. Ta-da! The number one solution to you achieving your goals is you. So you are the obstacle and you are the solution. Now you might say, well, I was born this way and I have an impediment and I have this, and you'd be right. That's correct. I'm not arguing with any of that. But the truth is, everybody can find a way to maximize on what they are, who they are, what they possess. But what they can really do is learn more, study more, be more, develop more, learn more. I mean, think of those things. It's never less. It's always more. My dad is 94 years old, 94. And every day he's up and every day we talk, and every day his admonishment to me is, what are you going to do today? Well, I'd better have a list. I'd better have some goals. I'd better have a direction, because I have to answer to my dad. Now, imagine having a dad who's 94. I can tell you it's challenging as hell, because he is sharp and he's unrelenting. So just a couple of more slides to go through here. Whether or not you are a football fan is really not important here. But these three words are famous, and they come out of the mouth of Bill Belichick, head coach of the New England Patriots. It's not important. What's important are the words. Do your job. Now, what is your job? Well, I don't know. You could be a father, a mother, a brother or a sister, a cousin, a boss, a worker, a driver, a cook. Think of all the jobs you do in a day. Lots of them. But everyone requires a different you. You can't be on a construction site running a team of 20 men and, getting things done and sweating and pushing and arguing and dealing with subcontractors, and then get home and deal with your children the same way, right? You can't be a teacher and act the same way that you do at school in other situations. You can't. It's imperative, if you're going to do your job, to be in the moment. So what's critical here is to talk about the freedom that the moment can give you, that between stimulus and response, there's a gap. So live in the gap. I mean, the people who are very predictable in life are very predictable. You probably know people and you tell them, you're always the same. They swear all the time. They never show up on time all the time. They're always late. They're never properly groomed, ever. They're always predictable. Well, that's not a good thing, is it? So between stimulus and response, there's a gap. Live in the gap. Ask yourself, I'm going into this situation. I'm going to speak with this person. What can I do? How can I dress? How should I sound? What should I ask? Instead of talk. Hey, try asking. How's it going? Really? How did you do that? What did you do then? What did you learn? Think of the things that you can learn on the road to establishing your goals, because everybody has got a lesson for you. But if you're so busy, always talking about you, I went here and I did this and I did that, aren't you tired of telling your story? And what are you learning when you're telling your story all the time? Ask. So my last slide here, this is all about you, Inc. So goals, absolutely. Direction, and you think about what drives the goals and what creates them. It's the 4 P's. And you say, 4 P's: plan, prepare, practice, and perform. If you have no plan, well, the rest doesn't matter. Now you got a plan, but are you prepared? So you're going to build a house. Okay, good. You got a plan. but are you prepared? Do you have the contractors? Do you have the material? And you say practice, practice. Well, are the people that you're playing with, that you're hiring, that you're working with, are they practiced? Are they competent? Can they do what they say they can do? Can you do what you say you can do? And it all leads to performance. So back to the U Inc., you are a company. You are going to get a job. You're going to get hired for what you can do, just like a company, because you are a company. It's your skills, it's your abilities, all those things that I said are behind that face in the mirror. And so all of your goals, all of your hopes, all of your dreams, all of those things are directly proportional and directly affected, commensurate with all the things that you are, but that changes every day if you want. Anyways, with that, I think I'm going to join Abram here in a minute, and we're going to have a discussion.
Thank you so much for sharing, Richard, all the insight and wisdom. And there's a lot. I resonate with a lot of what you said, and a whole lot of that. I want to unpack a lot of what you were speaking about. Obviously, about the it's always being now, but also about the one. I'll pull up the slide, but the one illustration about when you don't have vision and you don't and I resonate with that fully. But before I get into that, I would love to hear, what was it like before you got this for yourself? What was the point? I don't know how long ago that was for you. And I mean, obviously every day is a journey, and you're always, Rome was in fact not built in a day, as well as, who you've built yourself to be and what you're committed to in the world. But before you really got this for yourself, how did you come around? What were you facing, when you didn't have this wisdom?
Well, first of all, if you're using the word wisdom, yeah, I might have some of that, but there's a heck of a lot more of it to get. And I'm reminded the more I learn, how much I don't know. So the quest never stops. I would say that from an early age, I've always been a reader. So I want to just leave the people who are observing this with a saying that those who do not read are no better off than those who cannot read. I'll repeat that. Those who do not read are no better off than those who cannot read. So I've been a reader. And of course, if you're going to be a writer, then you better read. So I write and I read and I write. So one feeds the other. I got 4 new books just this week from Amazon. So I read a lot. So to answer your question, throughout my life, and I've worked in various situations in both United States, Canada. I was in Europe quite a bit with companies that were paying me to go there. And everywhere I went, there was an opportunity to learn, and I didn't always learn. So a lot of what I say to you now comes from, I don't want to say remorse or regret, because it is what it is, and it was what it was. But I might have, could have, should have done so much more, so much different, but I didn't. So a lot of what I'm saying to you now comes from the passion that I have and the fire that keeps me going forward. Because, a lot of my peers are rich and retired, and that's great. I'm very happy for them. But I'm not. I'm not poor, but certainly the fire keeps me burning because there's so much more. And I'm not that I can make amends for those things that I didn't maximize on, but I have more opportunities ahead of me. So I would just tell you that the song is not even halfway played, that I'm contributing every day, and I'm learning from you. I'm learning from others. I'm learning from what I read. Not very much of it comes from social media, by the way. So for those of you that are buried under the weight and the noise and the poisoning of just this bombardment of stuff, shut that down. Get yourself into a space where you can listen, you can breathe, you can reflect, and work on your goals. Work on your goals. I mean, and I'll repeat my offer. If you want goal sheets, email me. I will email you these goal sheets as many as you like. Print them, doesn't matter. Give them to your friends, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it sounds like your pursuit, I hear a lot of Socratic pursuit. I guess I'll call it Socratic pursuit. The wisdom is all wisdom is knowing you don't know, and and being like a child in that regard, and being open to explore and inquire into the mystery of life and the mysteries of life, and of truth. But I'm just curious, just like for people that are maybe they're in a situation where they know they want to have goals, or they have a goal, they don't know how to get, like, they're just discovering what their purpose is, and just or letting go of what was their shadow purpose, of following something that maybe was the wrong career, or trying to make someone else happy, or but just like I would assert it's usually the dark night of the mind that leads to the bright day of the soul. And I use that distinction specifically. A lot of people say dark night of the soul, and I don't think there's such a thing. I think it is the dark night of the mind. But I'm curious, because I could equate this to everyone's hero journey. But at some point, we have to walk our own lonesome valley. There's an old Mississippi John Hurt song, one of my favorites, is an old spiritual song. You got to walk you got to walk that lonesome valley. You got to walk it for yourself. Ain't nobody else can do it for you. You got to walk that valley for yourself. And I kind of hear that in what you're speaking. And I would just like, because I hear your pursuit since you were very young, and reading and educating yourself. But I'm curious, was there ever a time where when you felt like lost, and was there a poem you read, or was there a song you heard that kind of gave you the direction to be on this path?
Well, I have a couple of answers. First of all, Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I'm not an alcoholic, but I love their credo: one day at a time. So everybody take a breath. What happened before now matters not. Like I talked about the rear view mirror in the car. No matter what you are doing, you're going forward. You're going through life. You're a day older every day. So in other words, what happened in the past, let it go. Start afresh. Just like Alcoholics Anonymous, one day at a time. But start. And you start by doing something different. We are so habitual by nature. Charles Duhigg wrote a great book called Habits, The Power of Habits, right? Then there's another new book out called Atomic Habits. You are more habitual than you think. You do the same thing. You respond the same way. You're too predictable. If you're going to accomplish things and get away from where you've been, you've got to become something different. Now, when it comes to coaching, I mentioned actors, and I use Brad Pitt as an example because most people know him. But he has coaches, and people help him portray a certain thing. You and I don't have coaches. We have each other, and we have books. So the part two is, when my first wife left me, I was devastated. And it knocked the heck out of me. It took me off the rails. I was drifting. And one of the books that really helped me a lot was Wherever You Go, There You Are. Think of that title. Wherever You Go, There You Are, by John Kabat-Zinn. John Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N-N. Anyways, and it's funny, the title is the title, but here we are. So you can be distracted if you choose, but we're here and we're looking at each other, and it's a one-way conversation. So I can talk, and I don't have a chance to listen to any of you people that are out there. Abram, you're able to break through. But I would just say that from the dark moments, that was pretty dark for me. 2 younger children. I had a great place to live, and all of which I had to dispense of, except for the kids, of course. So that was a dark moment. And I've had others. I was fired one time from a great job, and there was not really good reasons for it, but I was fired, and I'm not ashamed of that. But again, I had to pick myself up, and I had to move the family. I had to do lots of things as a result of being fired. So these are moments in life that are tough. I was diagnosed with cancer, and so I've been cancer-free now for, well, you're never cancer-free, but I've been without any episodes, if you will, for 8 years now. And so, yeah, there's been quite a few scenarios in my life where I could have given up. I could have just grabbed the bottle and drank myself into a coma or death, but I didn't. So I just sucked it up and kept going. Does that answer your question, Abram?
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly what I'm asking is, what were those times like, but also how did you impart, standing, being separated, being, dealing with, having to leave that situation in your life and, all those episodes that you just shared, all those experiences. How did you impart all the things that you were sharing in the slides, and how did you find yourself? How did you have that relationship with you in those getting out of those dark times?
Well, I think it all comes down to discipline. This is sort of repetition, but your first inclinations are often not your best. If you act on every first thought you have throughout the day, you might make some mistakes. So reflection is a big part. So although I talked about not living in the rearview mirror in the car while you're driving, on the other hand, you have to learn from some of the near accidents that you almost got into while you drove, and the same thing with life. So Abram, I would say that in the case of my first wife leaving, I'm now married to a beautiful woman, and am I a better man, a less of a self-centered man? Yes, and that has taught me an oodles of lessons. That it's a matter of sharing, caring, and those sorts of things. Getting fired, well, I contributed to that scenario. Certainly, I wasn't a pristine white victim, that's for sure. There was some darkness, and I'm better for it. As for the cancer, hey, I didn't deserve it necessarily. Who deserves it? but there's not much to learn there except live a good life. Eat well, don't drink too much, don't smoke, lay off the bad stuff, do some exercise, think good thoughts. This is really important up here. If you're depressed, and which is easy to be, and I've been there, and sometimes I still fall into it. And when I do, I grab a book. I mentioned books earlier, by the way. Now here's another book I'm rereading. Keith Richards. Why am I reading this? Man, that guy's been through a heck of a lot. So I read a lot of biographies because it teaches me something. Because the people are candid. Not all of them, but most people who write a biography are honest. They're candid. They'll tell you what happened and why and the outcomes and so on and so forth. So I think it's a long answer to your question, but I go back to one day at a time. So today I'm sitting here with you folks, and tomorrow's Friday. And guess what? I'm going to be reaching out, getting with people, formulating ideas and plans, but it's an everyday scenario. It's like being in the ring when you're in a boxing match. That's another slide I had further on. But, if you watched $1 Million Baby, the Clint Eastwood movie about boxing, and they interviewed the Blue Bomber, the girl who ends up killing the protagonist, I forget her name now. They interviewed her, and she said, if you're thinking about that last punch that landed on you, there's one right behind it. So life is like boxing. Boom, a punch lands on your beak. You don't stand there thinking about it. Boom, you move, and you keep moving. And that's the only answer there is. There is no solution today that's going to apply tomorrow, because the people that you might have dealt with maybe they've deceased, quit, got fired, moved on. Maybe they don't want to speak with you. Think about it. So today's solutions and today's worries are not applicable tomorrow because everything's new. I just want to pursue that for a second. So you think about New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. People make all kinds of plans. I'm going to quit this. I'm going to quit that. I'm going to start this. I'm going to start that. Boy, I am going to be better, different, faster, stronger. And none of it is true, because New Year's Day is just one day. If I say to you, and this truth will set you free, that every day is New Year's Day, that the Alcoholics Anonymous, that saying it one day at a time, I would change that and say, well, every day is one day at a time, and every day is New Year's Day. Every day is a chance to make those goals, but don't make 50 of them. How can you possibly work on 50 things at the same time? Choose one aspect of yourself, one goal, financial, physical, relational, whatever, and work on it. And the next day, it's like making a cake. You don't throw everything in together. You have to stage it, right? You have to mix the flour. You have to mix the icing. Everything has to happen in a sequence. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. And I really hear, I hear a lot in what you're saying, but one of the things I hear that I resonate with is like really listening in the obstacle, listening for the opportunity, and how you take every day fresh, is like, that's, you said it very succinctly, and it's like, that's exactly what one day is about. Why our tagline is one day is today. It's like, we're declaring a new holiday, but part of that is a reminder that one day is today. Every day I have a choice to live into a future that inspires me, that lights me up. And every day is like, I have a fresh canvas to create from. And I think a big part of the discovery of that power, at least speaking for myself, was letting go of all the ideas, preconceptions, biases based on my past and the stories about what happened to me in the past. And I think everybody has an opportunity in that journey, because it's like Richard Rohr he's a spiritual philosopher, teacher, author. I've listened to many of his lectures. One of the things he said was, what was it? It was, now it's escaping me. But basically my point is that, we get to say every day, what we're living into for ourselves. And, we get to move forward. We get to hold on to the past and look in the rearview mirror, as you're saying, or we actually get to, step into something new. And that's the choice we have. And it's the discovery for me, is the discovery of that choice and that power. Because anytime we forget and don't see it, when I've been lost in the weeds and in the overwhelm and this and that, it's because I forget who I am and that I have that power. And I feel like that's what everybody goes through if they choose to, and
sorry.
Please.
Oh, I was just wanting to say this to that, that some of the people that are going to watch this, if you think about getting older, some of us are getting older, not all of us here, but anyways, you think about retirement, and you said about being who you are. Well, and this is so critical. People retire from, I'm going to retire from GM, Ford, Chrysler, a store, a factory, whatever, a dock worker, doesn't matter what. And then they stay at home and they're dead. They have no ideas. The job was so important. Every day they go to work and they come back tired, and they get up in the morning, and work was their life. That's where their friends, it's where their relationships. People need to retire to something, not from. Think about that. So when you're retiring to something, that means you're looking forward to it. You got your plans, you got your money, you got your pension, you're working toward, and then you say, I'm going to retire, and this is what I'm going to do. Because especially men, we have to do something. Men, unlike women, and I love women, I have all the respect in the world, but women are great. And by and large, the kids, the grandkids, the family, the house, the shopping, but they're always busy. I admire women so much, but men sit around and get grumpy. The happy hour starts earlier every day. So what they were when they had a working life is not what they're going to be, because they're going to be retired, but that doesn't mean it stops. So hopefully this resonates. If you have parents or friends that are sitting at home and they've lost their way, it's because they've lost their way. It's because they've stopped with their goal setting, and they've stopped with their hopes and dreams and aspirations. Heck, they could learn to play guitar, they could write a book, write a song, they could help out, they could volunteer, they could work, they could do so many things. But the driver to those are the goals that get them up off the chair, out the door, so they're breathing again, interacting with people, laughing, having fun, going somewhere, getting out of where they had worked so long to get to. but they
Right.
didn't use the right language. They retired from and not to. And we all have parents and relatives and family and friends who could benefit from those words, right?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, and that's I hear a lot in what you're saying because it's living. It's like living for on purpose, but it's like it's living by choice rather than living by chance. It's also you're living. It's like for something rather than against something. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. Be for some, always be for something rather than against something because the more I mean, there's a multitude of reasons not to just be against something because when you actually energetically when you're against something, like this is kind of an aside, you're giving space to that which you're against. And
Correct.
not to make this a political discussion, but I just want to use the example that everyone's familiar with is Donald Trump. And so, everyone has an opinion about him regardless. But my point is like, when you say a lot of people love him and a lot of people hate him and probably very little in between. But for the example's sake, if I say I hate Donald Trump and I'm really angry and he's bad, Trump is so bad, Trump is so bad, Trump is so bad. It's just like we're just creating more space of where he's actually dominating your thoughts and you're not actually contributing to something that might actually not be toxic in the thought and something that a wisdom that I learned from my mom, kind of indirectly, something I've observed, but just about how life is like a garden, and it's like whatever the weeds of our garden are the weeds are the flowers that we think are ugly. And whatever we water in our garden, whether it's a fear, an anger, resentment, or whether it's a love, nurturing, beautiful wonder and beauty and whatever, like that's what will grow. Yeah. And whatever we feed is what will grow. And I want to turn to one of the things you said earlier, but one like was what you're talking about with I don't remember the words you used, but it reminds me of like a distinction in like life being we get to live. Well, in life we can create or we can consume. And I hear like kind of you're distinguishing that earlier with one of your slides talking about we can easily fall into the consuming trap. And also I've fallen into the consuming trap before where I don't want to show up. I'm for a multitude of reasons. I'm in my own head. I'm in my old pattern of my old false self trying to be enough and to fit in and to belong and to be understood and to people like me and just like falling in that. When I create, it's like that's when I consume and I'm not actually I don't have the courage to show up and create. I'm being in a space of almost numbing the pain and numbing who I am because so it's like but I see the opportunity is when we create. Life is a blank canvas. It's like if you're doing something every day, you can do it differently. You can skip to the mailbox. The next day you could twirl. And the next day you could do a cartwheel. And the next day you high five the mailman. And and that's just one. And I love the movie of Groundhog's Day. Kind of one of my favorite movies because that's kind of the purpose of that movie is to remind us that we get to we can create everything we want every day and make memories that inspire us and create something that moves us to the core for ourselves and our lives and the people around us.
I think when you were saying what you were saying, it made me think about the difference between being a spectator and being a participant. Mm-hmm. So spectators are spectators. They watch, they sit, they listen, and they live vicariously through the lives of others. But the people on the field, whether it's football or hockey or baseball or soccer or wrestling or the musicians playing in the band that we so love, well, they're really participating. They're really creating. They're really doing something. So those same people playing in the band or the baseball, football are also spectators at different times in their lives. They're not always on stage or on the field, but it's a choice they make in some aspect of our lives. We get to choose. Now, some people are spectators at everything. They get up and life just happens. And like the grocery store analogy that I had, they go through the checkout and there's a few things in the cart and that's it. And they're dead. They're expired, gone. Best before date is behind them. But the people that are actually contributing, that are not spectators, that are participants, engaged boy, that basket is full. And it's a daily choice because every day we're in the grocery store. What are we taking? Love. Take some love. I'll take some happiness. I'll take some health. I think I'll take some goodwill, maybe some friendship. Oh, gee, I got to wash the car. Yeah, I better take some work. Oh, I got to deal with this issue. Oh, I'll take some conflict because I have to deal with something, right? So every day in that grocery store of life, we're taking, and not everything we take is great. Maybe I got to take some medicine because I'm sick. But guess what? We're
Sometimes
taking.
the fruit is spoiled. Sometimes the fruit is rotten.
Well, yeah. So it's fascinating,
Yeah.
being the spectator or the participant, right?
I love that. That kind of all ties together. It's being for something rather than against something. It's living by choice rather than by chance, but it's also living on the court of our lives rather than in the stands, just observing and thinking like, oh, I should have done this. This is good. This is like living in our opinions, living in our judgments of what's happening from the stands, and it's like, oh, this is a bad idea. This is a good idea, versus I'm living and you're a player rather than a commentator on the just observing it and talking about it.
Yeah.
I love it. So I want as we complete, I just want to just kind of see if what you would say. So kind of just coming back full circle to all the things that you shared, and one of the things that I feel like we've observed and highlighted is whatever time it is, it's right now, and every day we have a choice right now to create that future we're living into, that inspires us, that is aligned and resonates with our deepest values, which again, whatever, we all have different values, we all have different circumstances that lead us to love what we love, but we all have a choice to pursue things that are in alignment or resonate with what we value, because that's creating environments that in our lives that brings joy and experience that we would never have expected, just because we are open to that and we put it out there. But just to kind of bring it full circle, like, what do you say, just like, and I mean, maybe from a reflective point in your life when you were in those dark times, what do you say to someone who's ready to make that shift, ready to make that transformation, to let go of the past and really drop the rear view mirror that's been consuming their actions? But they're in one of the, like, facing a situation like that, whether they're divorced or fired from a job, which I'll tell you sometime about this. I have fired from a job that was a whole thing, but we all have these existential inquiries out of these experiences. And there's a saying that our co-host Matthew says a lot, that we've kind of adopted, is on the other side of trauma lies wisdom. And I just want to ask you, what do you say, like, standing in their shoes, they're looking at the bottom of the valley, in the darkest valley, looking up the mountain, what do you say to those people who are ready to start, but they just, maybe they need, what do you say to that person who is looking up that mountain from the bottom of the deepest dark part of their valley in their journey, but they're willing to start climbing?
Well, I love the fact that you use the term the valley and the mountain. So I want to say a few things. So first of all, because people are habitual and they do the same things all the time, the same way, and that's got them to where they are now. So if you look at life and you look at the valley, now in the valleys, there are rivers, because river and water always follows the path of least resistance. So a river goes down the valley, ends up in the ocean, and then it's over. And people are the same. People, by and large, will just follow the valley because it's easier to walk downhill than uphill. So, but if those same people just stop, let the herd, let the let the majority of people just walk past them. What's your hurry? You're going to the ocean anyways. You're going to get to the end of the valley. If they just paused and stopped and looked up at the top of the mountain, and they'd see a few people up there clawing and dragging and pulling themselves up, and their knees are cut and their elbows are bleeding and their hands are cracked from going from one rock cropping to the next. Those people are experiencing the highs. The truth about this is that same climber, that same person, it could be them. They could start climbing any moment. They have to remember that when they reach the peak that they worked so hard to get to, there's nowhere to go beyond the peak. That's the irony of life. That they have to have hope and they have to work towards that peak. But what happens to the climber that finally reaches their ultimate goal? They got to come down the mountain. You can't stay there. Then they have to find another peak or another goal, if you will. So if you hold that thought in your mind for a moment and just love yourself, give yourself a break, give yourself a chance. You are whatever age you are at. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, doesn't matter what the age is. It doesn't matter how many days you've been on this earth. Tomorrow, this afternoon, right now, you're going to make a choice. And instead of procrastinating, and everybody's a procrastinator to some extent regarding something, trust me, every person is a procrastinator in some way. We're not perfect. So pick one thing that you have detested that you know you should do, whether it's cutting the lawn, washing the car, sharpening your resume, whatever it is, and start. And tomorrow, start again. And the next day, start again and track it and make out a goal sheet. Number one obstacle, you. Number one solution, you. What are the action steps? How are you going to get there? Think about the SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Those things will determine whether you get there and when. Some people will say, well, I'm going to go to France someday. Well, when is someday, by the way? I don't know. It's not on the 7-day calendar, is it? However, somebody else will say, well, I'm going to go to France next July. The 14th, we're flying out. Those people are going there. So back to the point. You're in the valley. You've been following the herd. You've been having a good time. But now you're getting older and you're starting to look around and say, you know, I'm a little tired of being in the valley and following these people. And most people are in the valley and it's crowded and everybody's doing the same thing. They're all on social media and they're all going to the bars and they're all doing the same stuff. And that's getting boring and long. And they look up, well, start climbing. Don't worry, you're going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to scratch yourself. It's not easy. It's not easy leaving the herd. It's not easy changing. But change is something that we can all do. But you have to want to, but you have to want to every day. That mountain climber doesn't climb 24 hours a day. He can't. He's got to stop. And you know, you see the pictures. They got this thing, this like cots hanging from ropes on the side of a cliff or something, and they're having a sleep because they're out of energy, just like you and me. So don't worry, go to bed, get up in the morning, brush your teeth, have a drink of water, look back at your goal sheet and say, day 2, boom, day 3. But remember, every day is a new day. Every day is New Year's Day. So you're going to run into obstacles. People are going to try to distract you. Your friends will say, oh, I don't know if you should do that. You're getting pretty old for that, aren't you? Think about the admonitions and the suggestions and the comments people make with good intentions, but they're negative. So talk to me. I'll tell you that you can do it, but I'll tell you that you have to work. So there's an awful 4-letter word out there that people are afraid to use. And you'll hear people, no, boy, you shouldn't use that word. That's not very nice. It doesn't start with F. It starts with W. W-O-R-K. It's called work. So if you want to change, embrace that 4-letter word called work. And every day work on your goals, work on yourself, work on your ambitions, work on your skills, work on your abilities. So when you do look in the mirror, in a period of time from now, you look in the mirror and you're going to see a different person. You're going to stand straighter. You're going to stand taller. You're going to see somebody in that mirror that you didn't see before because he wasn't there. And it's all because you've embraced work. The work it takes to become the person and to do those things that you want to do using those 86,400 seconds a day and applying yourself with honesty, with integrity, with pride. That's what you're going to accomplish. But you got to leave the valley.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Richard, for sharing your wisdom and your stories and, you know, insight. It's encouraging to hear because I really hear how you've created every day and today and the next day as a journey and as an exploration, and just to kind of complete full circle with that mountain analogy. It's like I see you. The mountain has no top, and you're just happy to be part of the journey, and that's what's so inspiring about what you're sharing and who you are and what you're up to in the world. So I just acknowledge you for just reminding us and instilling that it's a journey. We will get where we'll get, but just keep on climbing. And I think that's a beautiful lesson to be reminded about. And I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing with us.
Hey, everybody, love yourself. Give yourself a chance. Be honest and stop procrastinating, right? Stop procrastinating, because that has gotten you here. But if you're going to go there, you got to leave something behind, right?
It's true. I'll say this to myself a lot. I'll say this to myself or other friends who I'm coaching. Say, like, if you don't, if nothing changes, why would anything change?
Yeah.
We can keep doing what we're doing, and we all know that definition of insanity. Trying the same thing over and over and expecting something different. So if we don't change, at least our outlook and our observations and our actions, why would we expect something to change if we're living into something that continues to make us unhappy and unfulfilled, unexpressed?
Yeah.
But thank you so much again, Richard. I love to have you back in the future, and we'll talk some more. But it's really an honor and pleasure to have you.
Thank you again, man. And hello, everybody. Goodbye. Have a good day.
It's our pleasure. I want to thank Richard for being with us, and I want to invite you out there, wherever you are in the world. I want to invite you to share your gifts on this stage. Now, that's what this stage is about, is for you, who you are, what you've created today, what you've overcome. We want to hear your stories and your wisdom and what you've had to face and overcome to discover and share the gift that you are. And, that's part of One Day's mission, is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And that's all part of our vision here, which is humanity's rising in a connected world with each person's unique gifts, genius, and contributions are being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. That's why we're here, and that's why we invite you. Again, thank you, Richard, and thank you all for being with us. And as always, we will see you next week, and be safe, be well, and one day is today. Peace, everybody.